Welcome back to the channel, Little Flexers, or if you're new here, welcome to my channel. This is the best place to be to learn about the Pokemon TCG and have some fun along the way. Today's video, a bit of a somber one, kind of a fun one. It's just going to be a life update and a little bit about the current coaching landscape. So we're going to go through it's a potpourri video, okay? It's all over the place. We just had NAIC, but due to a lot of time constraints, I'm not going to be able to make much of a video about that. So I'm going to talk a little bit about that. And then we're going to talk a little bit about coaching. And that's kind of a segue because I've been doing a lot more of that now than I ever have in the past. But we'll get to that. So yeah, that's what this video is. So I just sit down, grab yourself a cup of coffee or a hot chocolate, maybe an energy drink. I prefer Monsters myself. Or I actually really like the... What are those... Ghost energy drinks. I really like a good Ghost energy drink, an orange creamsicle. If you know, you know. But yeah, I just wanted to come on and make a video. I hadn't made a video in a month, and felt like a little piece of me was missing. And I'm going to be moving. That's right. By the time you're seeing this video, I may have already moved. We're moving across from Columbus, Ohio, to Newark, New Jersey. And I am excited, but I'm also quite sad. We built a nice community here in Columbus and great people here in Columbus. And I'm going to miss our house. I'm going to miss this house a lot. I was talking to Ann, over the last week, and just all the memories that we made in this house and all the fun things I got to do while in this house. And, my first house. And it's the house that we brought our two babies home to. And it's a house that, I got to make a home base when I was traveling to Pokemon tournaments. And I got to have people over to play cards and have friends and family over. And it's just, it's really sad. I mean, you can obviously see it's pretty barren back here. I don't have any of my plushies. Those are all in storage right now. And so we're moving to New Jersey. So... exciting stuff over there. We got some jobs lined up. My wife got a job. Let's back up just a little bit. I'd been unemployed for, 2 months. Correct timeline is I'd been unemployed for about 2 months. I was doing some tech jobs. I had a tech job, okay, and it was a consulting gig, so I was working. You could argue that I was doing multiple jobs at any one time, but. I was let go from that job in January, and then in early March, I'd been off for a couple of months just hanging at home with the kid. And in early March, my wife decided, we were kind of jointly decided, we're like, hey, why don't you just apply to a place? And her field of work, which is orchestra management, it's like a very small niche job. There's not many jobs that open up in any given year. And so she applied and she got the job, and it was in New Jersey. And so we made the decision about a month and a half ago, like, we're moving. And then all of a sudden I got a job, and it turns out they don't just have an office in Columbus. They also have an office in New Jersey. So thankfully, given how crazy the job market is, I'm going to be joining her in terms of being in the workforce. And so I'll be working over in Hoboken, New Jersey. So I'm looking forward to that. But yeah, we're leaving this house, and it's a sad thing, and it's happening really quick this Saturday. So yeah, if you're watching this and you're from the East Coast, specifically the New Jersey or New York City metropolitan area, hit me up, because I want to know all the places to eat. I want to know all the places to play cards. I want to know all the things to do, because Jersey, I'm coming for you. I'm coming. Once I come, I just I can't stop. And so anyway, that's what's happening with me. So let's talk a little bit about where I've been and what I've been doing. Obviously had NAIC. That was just an amazing experience. There's a few places that I've been to that I'm like, wow, I cannot wait to go back again. I would say basically every place in Japan. Barcelona to me was the same way. And now New Orleans. Give it 5 years. If we're still back in New Orleans year after year, maybe I will get sick of it. But there were definitely things that I did not do in my, 4 days of somewhat sightseeing that I had there. I guess 3 days, because a couple of those days were in the tournament. But there are definitely still things that I wanted to do and more things that I wanted to see. And so I can't wait to go back. They obviously announced it for next year. I think I may even do like a video of like where I would like to see an international championship in the United States, because there's some other places that could be really sick, I think. But anyway, it was awesome. I made day 2 with the Goldango deck. I'd been really, really worried the night before. I was like, okay, should I play Miraidon? And then we were playing Miraidon and it felt so good. And then we were playing, Lugia, and that felt super good. And then we were playing Guardy and Excalibur, and it felt like we had 4 different decks that at any one point in the night we were ready to ship, and all of a sudden we came upon Goldango and said, hey, this has a good Guardy matchup, this has a good Lugia matchup, this has a good Miraidon matchup, Charizard matchup is alright. Like, there's a lot of things you can do with this deck, and we ultimately shipped it. It seemed like I had really good matchups. We were playing it the night before, and it was testing really well. It was testing better than any other deck on the table, and we decided to roll it for NAIC, and it worked out pretty decent. I made it into day 2, and I had the best record of the group, so it was me, Jesse, and Andrew that played it. Andrew lost his win in, so he was 5-2-2. Jesse made it into day 2 as well at 6-1-2, same record as me. After starting 6-0-1, we all kind of think he was the one that had the run in him. It usually seems like with any testing group that, like 1 or maybe 2 people make it through the matchup gauntlet and are able to do pretty well. I think it was him. Just some unfortunate rounds, and he ended up 7-5-3 or something, 7-4-4 maybe. That actually sounds right. And then I was 8-4-3, so not the best for me either. Obviously you go to an international and you're hoping to make some money, but this was my best performance at an international, and I've only been to 4. I haven't been to that many. They've all been the North American International Championships. I do want to make it out to an international in an international country at some point. But historically, this tournament has been pretty poor for me, even dating back to when it was U.S. Nationals. I just never had great performances at this tournament. So it felt really good to finally break through that barrier. No mental barrier there for me, but still that perceived barrier of like, I can't ever day 2 at this, important tournament in the United States. So I was able to do that. Kind of flopped in day 2. I would say a couple of the losses were really out of my control in a lot of ways. Just opponents just kind of had it, or they won the coin flip or what have you. But a solid performance there, and I got to win on stream. It was pretty sick. I am a little upset though, because they didn't allow me to do a winner's interview. And they didn't even allow me to do a winner's interview for both of the matches that they had me on stream in Toronto. So I'm like, what's going on? I think they must really want my opponents to win or something. I don't know, because they just don't want me on camera. And maybe that's fair, because you never know. I'm a loose cannon. You never know what I could say. But I'm coming for a winner's interview. That's one way or another, I'm going to get that freaking interview, man. But yeah, super fun tournament. Really had a great time. Can't wait for it to be back in New Orleans. But yeah, I did want to touch on a little bit here, talking a little bit about coaching, talking a little bit about masterclasses and the proliferation of Metafy classes. Now, if you don't know and you're not aware, in the last 2 years or so, a startup called Metafy has really disrupted the Pokemon TCG space, and they have provided a way for players to essentially what amounts to provide private lessons for students, for clientele. I am very used to this, and I suspect many of you are used to this, like adjacent, but for maybe a sport or maybe music lessons, right? But when it comes to the Pokemon trading card game, this is different. This is unusual. And it's not just Pokemon. Obviously, Metafy does offers coaching services for any game, but it's really disrupted the Pokemon TCG space in a way that we haven't seen in about a decade. Now, this whole like argument of you see it Twitter discourse about there's so many, people are memeing on coaching and like, why are there so many classes? And, they a lot of people just don't get it, and they get kind of angry that information is being gatekept from them. But I think that we've had this debate before, and there are a couple key points that I want to bring up about it. About a decade and a half ago, I know I'm old enough to remember this stuff, so I have some wisdom when it comes to Pokemon and community lore. We had articles behind paywalls. Now we still have that system to this day, right? People still write TCG articles, and they'll lock a portion. I mean, similar to any subscription newspaper that you can think of, they'll lock off a portion of it, and then you have to pay your Substack fee or your Patreon fee or whatever it happens to be to see the rest of that. But about a decade ago, that was a new thing. That just never had occurred before, right? No one was doing this. It was all of a sudden information went from being, and it's hard to say freely available, because even a decade ago, there was really just like Facebook and then the forums. But people were a little bit, at least the top level players were a little bit more guarded with their information, right? They were putting it in these paywall articles in order to make money on people that were willing to pay that $5 or $10 a month. And that was, I remember when that first started, and people were just memeing on that, and like, how could you do this? And information should be free. And it reminds me a lot of the discourse that we're having now, and a lot of, Twitter wasn't really a thing back then, so we didn't see kind of this rapid fire, just memery regarding coaching, or regarding articles that we do now regarding coaching. But it feels very similar in a lot of ways, right? Where you have people that are upset that this information is being quote unquote gatekept, and that you have to pay to hear an opinion. And that, I think, it's really interesting, because the game is growing at such a rate that it's making these kinds of one-of classes, or Masterclasses, as many people are calling them, a lot more reasonable and doable. Because you just think about, like, the game is actually in a spot, in combination with just the existence of MetaFi, but the game is in a spot where it almost necessitates that these courses exist in some ways, right? There could be somebody that makes a YouTube video about it, but if they make a YouTube video about it, it's just the simple fact of it is that YouTube videos just do not generate a lot of clicks. And if they don't generate a lot of clicks, then they're not going to generate enough eyeballs to watch it, to get the ad revenue to make it lucrative enough to continue to produce, right? You look at some of, and this could be another video. I feel like every video I say this could be another video, but this could be a whole video of like, look at the top TCG content creators, and then look at how much their individual videos make, right? I make a video and it gets maybe 2,000 to 3,000, 4,000 views, maybe, right? Maybe like 5 or 6 on on the higher end, right? Because I just don't post with the right frequency, and I'm not, hitting the right metrics or whatever it is. I don't know. I'm just out here making videos, man. I don't think too much about the algorithm. But you see people that are, really, this is their livelihood, and they've solved the algorithm, or at least they've done enough work to, you would expect them to have solved the algorithm. Tricky Jim, Azul, A Little Dark Fury, think of all these kind of the biggest Pokemon TCG competitive YouTubers, and they still only get 10 or 20,000 views on a video, and that translates to, roughly $100 to $500 a video. That 500, like, I'm even saying that, and that's like too high, right? It's not that much when you think about it. So why would somebody without the brand recognition of Tricky Jim or the brand recognition of Azul, or brand recognition of Lil Dark Fury, or whoever you can think of, right? That's getting like decent money on YouTube. Why would they ever make that information available in such a way when they could charge somebody $10 or $20 and present a course that in some ways is better than a class, or is better than a YouTube video, because it's interactive, right? Somebody can ask a question, or you can be corrected in real time if you make a mistake, right? It's a whole thing. There's less editing on the part of the YouTube maker, and that content, if it's up on YouTube, it kind of gets out of date pretty quickly. I mean, I guess you could say the same thing about the class, but it's kind of a wash there, right? It's going to be outdated anyway, whether you do a class or whether you do a YouTube video. But it just doesn't make financial sense for me, somebody with limited time, and somebody who has kind of an arsenal of students, right, that are all vying for my time. And this is the case with other coaches too. I'm not just trying to like pump myself up, but there's a lot of demand for coaching. What if I could just open that hour up to multiple people? And we've seen a lot of players do this with great success, and not just the high end, although you see Tord making, $5,000 to $10,000 off of some of these courses, charging $40 or $50, opening up a few hundred slots. It's good money, certainly, for like the high end player to produce a 1 or 2 hour essentially slideshow presentation. That's really, really good money. And even for the the lower tier of players, right, or the upper echelon of players that maybe are subject matter experts in one very specific deck, like they can do all right too. I coach for the last year. I mean, coaching has been really good. Obviously it gets better when you perform better. So post Peoria, post Toronto, things were better in terms of the income and in terms of the demand than they were before those tournaments. But, even for the last year and year and a half, it had been pretty hard to keep up with the demand for coaching. Because I think there's something in a coach that you want where, you maybe don't, some people don't always want to go to, the quote unquote best player. Right. It's the same as any coach in sports. It's like the best player may not be the best coach, but obviously, great players have made great coaches, so it's that kind of thing where it's like, okay, I want somebody who can teach me the material, not necessarily, the best player. Right. But, someone like me can make a class and I can teach it to, 20, 30, 40, 50 people and make a hefty chunk of change. Whereas if I put the same effort into a YouTube video, it would be free and it would make a tenth. Yeah. I mean, a tenth of that, like a 20th of that. I think just financially, like if you think about it from a coaching standpoint and you're the coach yourself, it does not make a lot of sense to make this information freely available. So coming back to the thought of the game, necessitates coaching right now, or the game is like the game itself is facilitating coaching. I believe that because there are just so many archetypes right now. So it's very, very difficult, even for top level players, to be proficient at multiple archetypes. So it's difficult for them. Obviously, the better the player you are, the more time that you have to put into these archetypes, the more you can say that you would be proficient at multiple, or the more history you have in the game, right? You can, the better your fundamentals are, the more you could, claim to be proficient in multiple archetypes. But I think that's not the case for the average person. And with our game growing the way that it has, people would love to just say, okay, yeah, I'll pay my $20, $30 and I'll listen to somebody talk about matchups that is that subject matter expert, and that will save me hours of testing, or at the very least, give me a path forward for how to approach things, right? If I'm coming in with no idea how to play a matchup, and my friend tells me how to play that matchup, that's going to give me insight that I can then use when I further test that matchup. Same for me, same for, Tord, same for Andrew, like same for any player, regardless of skill level. If they have somebody they trust coming in and saying, oh, you actually route it like this, or have you tried this strategy? You're going to be like, oh yeah, I should, at least listen to that. That can at the very least inform what I'm trying to do. So if you can't tell by this point, I'm kind of a big advocate of coaching, and not even just, buy my course, because I am not the type of person that is going to try to, I'm not going to try to like suck all, as much money as I can. That's really not my MO. I don't do this for a living, right? I don't, it's not necessarily that I don't aspire to do it for a living, but I'm not out here to just like get as much money as I can and then leave, right? That's not, I don't like that, right? I like being a reputable community member. I enjoy that. I enjoy being able to discuss with people, kind of on a, human to human level, as opposed to like a snake oil salesman, right? And so I've only done a couple of classes. They've been very popular. I've been very, blessed to be able to do them and to have the demand that they have. But I know that there are a lot of coaches out there. Like somebody was telling me about a session where the Medify coach was talked maybe for like 15 or 20 minutes about the deck list, and then played games on the ladder. And I'm like, oh my gosh. And I've heard the stories about, coaches like almost like making fun of how easy it is to make money at doing this, like in public, like at tournaments. And I just like cringe when I hear that kind of stuff, because I take it very seriously and I want it to be very beneficial, right? It was such a joy to see. There were probably like 4 or 5 players at NAIC that took the Miraidon class and made day 2. And that to me, it's like really exciting for me to see that, right? Because I just want the people that I teach to, I mean, frankly, I say this with the people that I coach, just generally, like on one-on-ones, it's like, I want you to not need me in the future, right? And that's the same thing with this, with these classes. Like, I want you to take a class and maybe you learn a lot about that specific archetype, but hopefully there's stuff in there that you can apply to any game that you play or any deck that you build from here on out. Obviously, different decks are going to have different play styles, and what I teach in a Miraidon class is probably not going to translate very well to a stall archetype. But the idea remains, right? It's like, hopefully any time that I'm coaching or teaching, I am able to impart some wisdom in the decade plus that I've been playing that you can then use in future games or in future formats. And I do feel like some of the memery and some of the vitriol and angst and frustration with classes or master classes comes from the fact that I don't know that all these coaches take it that seriously. And I don't know, maybe drop it down below. Please don't use names. I'm not out here to like drag anyone. That's not what this video is about, because I only heard that there was a coach that did this. I don't know what coach was, doing these things, saying these things, but I'm not out here to drag anybody, and I'll delete those comments if it's, singling out a single person, right? That's not cool, and that's not what the point of the video is. But, I know that is a thing, and I think that really contributes, in a lot of ways, right? And we saw the same thing a decade ago where it's like, I bought the paywalled article and they gave me the same list that with one card change that did well at the last regional, and and it's not worth it. And it's like, Yeah, but I don't know. I almost kind of feel like if you want the game to grow, like you got to be, as a consumer, right? You gotta support you got to support the players, right? It's like, man, why aren't there more YouTube videos that discuss the intricacies of the God of War versus Lost Box matchup? Well, because somebody's going to spend 10 hours putting that together and it's going to get 1,000 views, right? And that's just not, that's not sustainable for a player, right? Like for a player like me, like I already have limited time. Even the high tier players right now in the game, just don't have that kind of time. Like we just don't. Some people have jobs. I know. It's crazy to think about that. Some Pokemon players have responsibilities. I know. It's kind of crazy to think about that. They can't just be, dishing it up to you on on a silver platter every day. Although I'd like to. I would. Believe me, many people are saying this. I would love to do right by you, the consumer. I'd do it to you for free. But alas, I cannot. So I think there's a real economic element to this. It's just the easiest way, frankly, for a person at the top of their game. I would, I'm not gonna brag, but feeling like I'm as good as I've ever been. Okay. And then there are many, there are many players above that, right? For us, this is the easiest way to try to make some money. Try to attend more events, buy the cards that we need, get the stuff that we need to go to these events. And I think that to kind of summarize all this, I think that the memery and the tomfoolery surrounding coaching is warranted to an extent. Right, where if you have had a session with a coach that just really didn't provide any insight, that is of course going to be bad, and you should feel like you wasted your time buying and attending that session. But if you think about it economically from the vantage point of a coach, this is all we got, man. Like Twitch streaming is not lucrative unless you're doing it 5 to 8 hours a day. YouTube videos are not lucrative unless, I don't know, you're making one a day and you live with your parents. Not a dig, by the way. I'm just saying, it does not make enough. The content that people consume does not make the person who makes the content enough money. And at the end of the day, that's just kind of what it comes down to. I don't know, for better or for worse. So that's why you're seeing so many classes. That's why you're seeing so many of these masterclasses pop up, is because people got to make a living somehow. And the market has provided for it. Now, if everybody falls off the face of the earth, nobody wants to pay $25 for a course. Okay, that's fine. It'll course correct. Whatever. It is what it is. Would I produce this stuff as a YouTube video if Metafy didn't exist? I don't know. Probably not. I'd probably just talk about it on my podcast or something. But the fact that it does, and the fact that you guys are very generous and like the format, I'm like, the format of a class, right? I was like, yeah, okay. I think it does provide value personally. And I would be I don't ever want to give away something that I myself would not want to buy. And I think that is the other aspect of it is, there are certain matchups and certain decks where it's if I'm trying to get up to speed, I would think very long and very hard about buying, a $10, $20, $30 course from somebody that could get me up to speed. Because that's a crazy thing too, is we're seeing so many of these master classes because the meta is always changing and new decks are always cropping up and, rotations happen and new sets come into the fold. There's just a lot of moving pieces, and that's kind of an exciting thing as a coach about creating classes, is that, okay, one deck that, exists now, Miraidon, for instance, right? I get top 4 at a regional and win another regional with Miraidon, and then that archetype is dead for 3 months, and then it comes back alive, and hey, who's that preeminent Miraidon player? I guess it's me, and hey, I can host a course. So that was a bit, I guess that's really all I wanted to say on that. So I'm curious to hear your insights on courses and classes and masterclasses. Please drop them in the comment section below. Hope you enjoyed this video. We're going to be doing more videos like this in the future when I get to New Jersey, baby. Yeah, I still can't believe I'm saying it. Goodbye, blue and white single striped wall. Goodbye, London Pikachu. You'll be in my office in my 3-bedroom apartment. I'm downsizing from what essentially amounts to a 5-bedroom house to a 3-bedroom apartment with 2 kids. Okay. Enough of that. Enough feeling sorry for myself. I'm excited. Hope you are too. If you're from Jersey, please make sure to reach out. If you're not from Jersey, leave a comment down below. Maybe you could like the video so it gets pushed out in the algorithm. I don't know, man. I'm just out here trying to make a video. So that's going to do it for me today, guys. God bless. If I don't see you soon, I'll see you later. And remember, good luck and also have fun.